that it depends also in which time period.
Yeah.
Because Brazil, you could say that Brazil was on the edge to become full time, or however call it, member of the movement in the early 1960s, but then after the coup it was complete
Change,
political change, so it became unthinkable.
But now Brazil is the part of the BRIC, right?
Well, yeah, formally, but its BRIC is kind of
Falling
like
apart.
informal
Yeah.
organization. So,
Right.
but they had, during the time of Lula and then Dilma, it was there were stronger political ties also. Nowadays, although this Bolsonaro, who is president and very like anti-communist, anti-left, he was very anti-Chinese as well.
Right.
But then he really calmed down when he set, into
Power.
the office,
Yeah.
because he realizing that China is the main trade partner.
Sure.
Brazil is, and practically China is on the basis of that trade. You could say that China is the main partner in that economic growth of Brazil, because China is buying this stuff that Brazil is producing in
Which is what?
soya, first of all, like that's then other things as well.
Wood.
Uh,
Some silver, right?
Yeah, but then oil as well.
Oil.
They became like in last, let's say, 2-3 decades.
No, it
Gold producer.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
makes
and there were like a
Belarus
big.
was part of Soviet Union.
That is, for instance, one of these journeys that I made in that time in 2011, 2012, when I was there
To
with
where?
my cousin, with helicopter when I was flying. So my cousin, his helicopter is, let's say, they have client, they have job in Rio, so the helicopter that is parked in São Paulo goes to Rio, so he goes a day before from Sao Paulo to Rio, empty. There are two these pilots, and then this area, visitors area, in the helicopter is empty. So that those were the opportunities to travel with him. And next day he was providing rides to those businessmen and I don't know whom, like Petrobras company men that were going to these different oil platforms that are in that area around like Rio de Janeiro, state of Rio de Janeiro. So they were visiting, and by helicopter you can do several those rides in. So Brazil became producer, big producer of oil in last several decades. So, and then like all these rude mines, that's also transported and exported to China. So China is important part of like in that mathematics of economic growth. But the major, I would say, problem of Brazil remains that social
but
inequality
for
that
Pinochet.
is extreme, that is legacy of
Colonial.
yeah, and slavery and colonialism. So this left governments, Lulas and Dilmas, they were trying, and even Cardoso, that was president before, that was really interesting guy, probably most intellectual president that not only Brazil had, because the guy was sociologist that graduated on Sorbonne, and really enlightened man. So I would say that this effort to step towards more balanced social structure, and was made already in his time, and then, but this what we witnessed in last few years with Bolsonaro, and even before with that coup, to throw Dilma, that is, you can call that coup, and I would say it's some kind of counter movement, of those extremely rich that don't want to give,
So the
any
only
of
difference in between coup against the Allende and the coup against Dilma is it's almost peacefully done. So it's called democracy, right?
Exactly. That's why. Exactly.
Yeah, before the people who stood up and they were armed themselves, now they just say, okay, maybe I have a better telephone provider, the new president.
In Brazil, right?
In Brazil,
It was not
anywhere,
democratic.
It's different time. I will tell you, like tomorrow, day after tomorrow, I can choose. Talking about media, because those times with coups like in 1960s, you can say that television was in those countries still new. It was everywhere, relatively new phenomena, but this indoctrination or manipulation was not. Television was not main channel for manipulation of masses in such a way that it will become in our age. So I would say that it's very interesting to talk about also Brazil and Brazilians' development, and also to talk about Brazilian music in terms of media, because samba, I was telling you this about this anthropophagic manifest, racial blending and mixture that was raised into the main, let's say, postulate for building nation building in 1920s. It was the time of the radio. So the radio and samba, that was proscribed as music and as dance and all those rituals. That was for a long time considered as, let's say, black suburb, favela, slave thing, not proper culture. It was in 1920s that they were thinking how to create one nation on such a big space with such a big population. So it was this President Vargas that was also problematic but interesting creature in many ways. That was.
Why was he problematic?
Well, because he also came to power first with coup d'état. It was military.
I think the first two times he was elected democratically, and then he had a.
I would say, it was. Later on, also he was elected. First, Brazil was also like in 1920s on the edge of some kind of civil war, and so on. So it was in that time that he appeared as a figure, but he was not having, let's say, democratic legitimacy. It was military. But he was the one choosing samba. He was having connection with those intellectuals. They were thinking how to create nation. Samba was chosen. It was black legacy that was legitimized, and then through radio that became this major channel for nation building and whatever. That's how samba became a symbol of Brazil, because there were other musics as well, other rhythms, forró.
Rumba.
No, rumba is more Argentina. It's not so much connected with Brazil. Brazil had like northeast that is
Merengue.
it's also like a more this Central America. Forró is main is like major also Brazilian music from northeast, very black. But samba through Rio de Janeiro was sophisticated with like a mixing with European population and also influences, and it was that samba from Rio. Let's say that again simplifying, but that the process was like this: end of slavery. Brazil is one of the last countries in the world, big countries that abolished slavery in 1888. So that's when slaves from plantations migrate towards cities. In the cities, Rio was the city where it was the biggest European population. It was the place where the Portuguese court was placed in early 19th century, so the most developed cosmopolitan area. Then, you know, who becomes the person to spread samba in Brazil and then outside of Brazil? Carmen Miranda, that was daughter of Portuguese. She was born in Portugal. She came to Brazil with parents when she was just like 6 months, 9 months old. So she grew up in Rio, but she was always, till the end of her life, she was having a Portuguese passport. But she becomes white girl that spreads, you know, that is that mixture, and samba becomes national music. And then in the meanwhile, in the from 60s on, television plays you know, continuously much more significant role. So nowadays, I will prepare that tomorrow to tell you a bit about the global, because same, you know, I'm joking, you know, for Serbia you can say that Serbia is, you know, in many ways corruption, you know, like Brazil is contemporary Brazil is in many ways, you can say it's global, you know, it's, or like to put it the way, you know, if Serbia, you know, like you can say Pink and Grant, you know, those televisions that are producing this crap, you know, like lot of crap, you know,
trash.
Yeah, in Brazil, you have that media conglomerate that is called Globo, that is covering everything, you know. So it is dictating taste in every possible aspect, political, musical, cultural, whatever.
So just one media channel, one media channel, right? And
it's not channel. It's not channel. It's they are having like a.
And who owns this? Who owns this?
Well, like there was, they called him. His name is, I think, Marani. The guy died. They called him Brazilian Citizen Kane, and who made like a deals with whomever, you know, and really like a surreal deals all over political and social and cultural spectrum, and but they are like they have televisions, they have newspapers, radios, discographic music labels, you know, everything, you know. So and anything, you know, can happen. Nothing can happen in Brazil without approval. Nothing big without approval of global. You know, so when Lula, for instance, was running for president 3 times, you know, without success, they say in Brazil that he made it to become president of Brazil when Globo gave green light. And I would say all these like changes and coups that were happening lately were also done with some kind of approval of Globo. Because, and I'll give you just one, what kind of capitalism Brazil is. There is Laurentino Gomes, is a journalist and writer, very good, he wrote very good books. One is like 1808, about the influence of this change that came with Portuguese court, royal family, and 15,000 people that came to Rio de Janeiro running away from Napoleon. I was telling that is unique about Brazil. So 15,000 people came to Rio de Janeiro, and Rio de Janeiro becomes then capital of whole Portuguese empire, and that is unique case in history that colonial town becomes overnight capital of whole empire, and that is the first moment when some kind of development, social and infrastructural, of Brazil starts. But the thing is, that having those slaves, they were behaving as, slaves are as flies. It was huge mortality, and Portuguese elite, that colonial elite, was not, and that is different to like Protestant and European, continental European elites. Even when they run colonies, they are interested into some kind of like, let's say, technological innovations. These guys over there were not interested in anything. For instance, they were not interested. They had slaves, and those slaves were having like particular name because their skin was marked. The guys they were not interested for the sewage, to have some kind of sewage system, for shit and piss. They had slaves, that were taking that to the ocean. So taking the piss, that is having, I don't